from the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus. This is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Riley Lung, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow. It's currently 12 p.m. and starting off, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is again calling on the Indian government to work with Canada to investigate the allegation that it had a role in the killing of Sikh separatist leader in BC. He again said his government has credible allegations and that there were many questions that are needed to be addressed.
There is no question that India is a country of growing importance and a country that we need to continue to work with, not just in the region, but around the world. And we're not looking to provoke or cause problems, but we are unequivocal around the importance of the rule of law and unequivocal about the importance of protecting Canadians and standing up for our values.
The College of Family Physicians of Canada wants to increase the length of family medicine residency from 2 years to 3 years, so doctors are prepared for more complex patients. But the plan is raising concerns as it will increase the shortage of family doctors in Canada, as over 6 million Canadians do not have access to a family doctor. Dr. Nancy Fowler, Executive Director of CFPC's Division of Academics Family Medicine, says that the first 3-year program will roll out in 2027. A recent drop in the number of people using BC's prescribed safe supply program has authorities asking questions. Reporter Max Mashman has more.
The provincial government is investigating the reason behind an 11% dip in people accessing prescribed safe supply. With more than 5,000 people prescribed opioid, stimulant, and benzodiazepine alternatives in March of this year alone, questions remain about why those numbers went down to around 4,500 in July. There are concerns from some advocates that drug users who do not have a prescription will turn to BC's deeply contaminated drug market, which has claimed the lives of over 1,400 people so far this year. The province has noted that the largest drop in prescriptions is for opioid alternatives, but the BC Coroner Service has said that there is no relation between prescribed safe supply and overdose deaths. Max Mashman, 1680, The Crow.
We have Max here on the phone. So, Max, around 1,400 people died of drug supply-related deaths this year so far. How does that look compared to other recent years?
Well, Riley, last year, drug supply-related deaths neared 2,300, but the year is not over yet. You also have to keep in mind that these numbers relate specifically to toxicity within the drug supply and do not account for the other risks of illicit drug use, such as overdose. The human casualty of drug use, which these safe supply prescription models try to address, are likely much more severe than what these numbers let on, and that is just in death. Obviously, there are also people such as the friends and family of these drug users, as well as costs to them and their ability to live a normal life that have to be considered.
All right, and outside of these safe supplies prescriptions, what else are authorities doing to tackle the drug toxicity crisis?
Well, BC is taking a general harm reduction approach, which ties into programs such as decriminalization for small quantities of controlled substances and safe injection sites. The idea is to destigmatize drug use and make it so addicts can seek out help and testing without fearing criminal repercussions. Things like safe injection sites allow users to take substances in spaces where they can be monitored for adverse reactions and stop practices such as needle sharing, which can have negative effects on public health.
All right. Thank you for coming on, Max.
Of course, Riley.
All right. Vancouver police say a man has been arrested and charged after a stabbing attack that took place on Wednesday morning. In a social media post on X by VPD, originally known as Twitter, a man in his 30s started attacking strangers near Carroll Street and West Hastings. The man stabbed at least one person before community members could intervene to prevent further injuries. Thankfully, the victim did not sustain any serious injuries. A Lower Mainland search and rescue team rescued a man last night after a hiker was stuck on a cliff at Mount From. North Shore Rescue says the hiker called 911 and told operators that he was hanging on and wasn't sure how long he could hang on for. The crew was picked up by Talon helicopters, but by that time it was dark. The location of the hiker was spotted using night vision goggles while the hiker was shining his flashlight at them. The man was hoisted up from the cliff. North Shore Rescue says the man was rescued from the exact spot where another hiker fell to his death 2 years prior. A BC Supreme Court judge has awarded parents of a teenager who was about to graduate high school $327,635 in compensation. Jaehyun Shim was struck and killed by a vehicle at a crosswalk in Nanaimo, BC in 2019. The family was seeking over $1.6 million in losses due to the young man's dedication in supporting his parents and helping operate the restaurant. Forest Minister Bruce Ralston says the car crash deaths of 4 men heading home after helping fight a wildfire in the Vanderhoof area marks more tragic news in a very tough wildfire season. The deaths bring a number of wildfire personnel who have died this season to 6 in the province. When speaking to the media at the Union of BC Municipalities Conference in Vancouver, Ralston was asked about the role of subcontractors in firefighting efforts and says such details are still emerging. UBC has partnered with a Japanese robotics company to experiment with the idea of robotics in senior homes. Our reporter Zach Clark has more.
Artificial intelligence-powered robots may be the cure to senior loneliness. Researchers at the University of British Columbia have been experimenting with 2 AI-powered robots to see if they could potentially become friends for elderly people living in assisted care. The AI companions have been tested at a West Vancouver seniors' home to mostly positive results. While some seniors were confused by the robots, many enjoyed the company and conversations they could have. The robots could be great for seniors who don't often get out as they're self-sufficient and don't require cleaning. While the experiment is only with 2 robots as of now, we could soon see many robotic companions in the future. Zach Clark, 1680 The Crow.
The federal government has tasked the Food Bank of Canada with handing out menstrual products to those in need. Gender Equality Minister Marcy Len announced that $17.9 million pilot project on Thursday at Alla Gardens Food Bank of Toronto. Food Banks of Canada will partner with smaller organizations to provide free menstrual products to what Len described as diverse low-income populations. The public is being given a chance to see the inside of a Canadian Forces coastal defense ship. The HMCS Edmonton is being opened for tours Sunday at Burrard Pier and St. Roch Dock. The ship is intended to conduct coastal patrols, minesweeping, law enforcement, pollution surveillance, and rescue. 2 smaller Orca-class patrol vessels will also be open to the public at the same location. The province of BC, Ontario, and Newfoundland have lost an estimated $2.47 billion in tax revenue over the past 4 years due to illegal growth in tobacco sales, says the Convenience Industry Report. The Convenience Industry Council of Canada reported released Wednesday has examined the downward trend of legal sales in tobacco in 3 provinces since 2019 and has seen a rising growth in the underground contraband tobacco market. The report says there is more profit illegally selling cigarettes than illicit drugs, yet the penalties for being caught are less harsh. It's estimated that BC has lost between $215 million and $519 million in tobacco tax revenue from 2019 to 2022. There is a new push for more heat pumps in America. Rita Foley from ABC has the story.
Heat pumps are almost a miraculous solution, says the governor of Washington state, to 3 problems Americans face: heating in the winter, cooling in the summer, and a reduction of carbon pollution. Now, 25 state governors and the Biden administration have announced a pledge to ramp up the number of heat pumps in the U.S. by 2030. Heat pumps don't use much electricity, but they are able to heat and cool buildings. When it's too cold, they can take heat from outdoors or underground and bring it in. When it's too hot, they can move the heat outside. Since they often replace oil or gas furnaces that add greenhouse gases to the air, experts say they can meaningfully address climate change. And there's a tax credit. An ecology professor in Rhode Island who ditched his oil furnace says his house is more comfortable and his energy bills are about half of what they were before. I'm Rita Foley.
U.S. President Joe Biden is set to announce a $325 million military package for Ukraine today. Karen Travers has more on that.
A U.S. official says it will include additional capabilities to help Ukraine strengthen its air defenses ahead of what they said is expected to be another brutal winter of Russian airstrikes against Ukrainian critical infrastructure sites. The package will also include capabilities to help Ukraine with its ongoing counteroffensive, including artillery ammunition and anti-armor capabilities. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Moving into sports, the Vancouver Canucks kick off the training camp today, with head coach Rick Tuckett saying there's a method of how he will approach the camp. Tuckett was hired partway through last season after Canucks fired coach Bruce Boudreau.
People overblow like a hard camp. Like we're not going to do goal line for an hour. Like it's an educational camp. It's systems. It's battle drills. It's off-ice workouts. It's all calculated. I'd be dumb to run the guys through the ground the first 3 days.
The Calgary Flames says defenseman Oliver Kylington was unable to take part in the opening training camp on Thursday. The determination was made following the team's medical and fitness testing on Wednesday. No other details were released by the Flames, as they say the situation is a private and personal matter. The Vancouver Giants team just got a new co-owner. Drew Scott from Property Brothers joined the Giants ownership group. Scott says his hometown holds a special place in his heart, and Vancouver holds the best sports fans. And some big news for the Giants. They will be playing their first game of the season against the Victoria Royals on Friday. On to soccer. On Saturday, the Vancouver Football Club will be playing against the Halifax Wanderers at 1 p.m. at the Willoughby Community Park Stadium in Langley. This comes after the 0-1 loss against Valor Football Club yesterday. In football, the BC Lions will be playing against the Edmonton Elks tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. The Lions are placed second in the league with 9 wins and 4 losses. And on September 29th, the Lions will be hosting their 3rd annual Orange Shirt Day, marking Canada's
Stay tuned
National
for more
Day for
on
Truth and
BCIT's
Reconciliation
1680
events
The Crow.
and activities. I'm Riley Lung, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Fantasy football is one of the largest sports industries in all of North America and is only getting bigger. American football is the most popular sport in the United States, and football is a religion for its most die-hard fans, and fantasy football is their Bible. On our show today, myself and my co-host Madison Buckingham will be going over the fantasy football industry, doing a deep dive into its success in its past 60 years of existence.
The main question we want to ask is why? Why have football fans migrated away from their hometown teams in favor of the players they have on their fantasy teams?
We hope to provide answers to these questions and provide details not just about fantasy football, but how legalized gambling is affecting the industry.
Matt Marchese of Sportsnet is a fantasy football expert. Matt loves football and has been enrolled in 7 different fantasy leagues this season. Matt was kind enough to speak with us to tell us what he loves about fantasy football so much.
I mean, I love the camaraderie. I love the trash talking, especially in a couple of leagues that I've been in for a while. Like one league that I'm in, I think there's about 7 of us that are in. We've been there for 7 years, and like 7 of us, I think, have been there the entire time. And then we've had a couple of changeovers here or there, but like that to me. I got to know people that, I'm here in Toronto area, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4 guys, I believe, that live out in BC because, we had a mutual friend or whatever the case was. And then one of the other guys was in Trinidad, and then he's recently moved up to Toronto. So, I like that part of it because, listen, I've gotten to know people. I would call them friends, and I've never actually met them in person.
Some people are so invested in their fantasy teams that they cheer for them over their hometown clubs. We asked Matt where he stood on that issue.
Yeah, I would say that I know for some people it's really hard to keep separate, and my answer to that would be well, then, I'm not saying it's your own preference, but I would say that those people are not as diehard about, their teams as I am. When the Bills lose, I'm upset. When my fantasy teams lose, I'm upset. But I've got 7 of them. So one of them is bound to win and make me feel a little better. When the Bills lose, and that's it.
Now on to the gambling aspects. Gambling is now a huge part of the sporting landscape, with 34 American states, plus Washington, D.C., and 7 Canadian provinces allowing single-game sports betting in some form. Having your own sportsbook is a license to print money, and with so much money tied into gambling, it changes how much investment people have in athletes.
The fantasy football market is worth a total of $29 billion and is expected to grow up to $76.51 billion by the end of 2030. There are over 60 million people across the globe playing some form of fantasy sports. And to nobody's surprise, the largest and fastest growing fantasy leagues are the ones involving the NFL.
The NFL made nearly $12 billion in revenue during 2022 and is one of the most recognizable brands in the world. Advertisers line up to get a piece of America's most prestigious league, with Super Bowl commercials costing over $7 million per 30-second commercial. With the COVID pandemic finally behind us, for the most part, sports leagues are trying to recoup as much money as they possibly can from heavy pandemic losses. One of the largest revenue drivers in the post-pandemic industry is legalized sports gambling. Spend any time watching sports and you'll be bombarded with betting ads, and the constant betting segments during intermissions and halftimes.
Now that it's here, sports gambling is likely never going to go away, and regulation efforts are going to have to increase along with the supply of people betting on single game events.
Legalized gambling has also changed the way we consume our favorite teams and players, especially in regards to our fantasy teams. Now that many people have bets or parlays on specific events, there is more incentive to cheer for specific events during sports games. The casual fan has become more and more emotionally and monetarily involved during games. Many people have significant money tied into individual players, creating an immersive experience that leagues are cultivating.
I think more people are now watching football in Canada because they can bet on a single game. Whereas before, like here in Ontario, we have Proline, and I don't know what you guys have out west, but that was something that was very prominent for a long time. But you had to bet on a minimum of 3 games, if I'm not mistaken, or 2, but I'm pretty sure it was 3. So, people shied away from that. Well, I don't want to bet because I just want to bet on this one game because, my team's playing in it or this is my favorite player. Now that's completely changed the landscape. Now it's like I can bet on one game. I can bet on one single thing, catches, yards, whatever the case may be. So I think that part has totally changed not only how people watch football, but the types of people that are watching football too.
But with all that comes significant risk, with multiple NFL players having already been suspended for gambling. It is important to note that it is illegal for NFL players or employees to gamble on any sports.
Marchese spoke about the possibility that the sports world might endure another major gambling scandal like the Chicago White Sox did in 1919, where multiple players were banned for life.
I mean, it's always a possibility. I think it depends on the player, too. I believe they have, like some guys got suspended for 6 games. Ridley got suspended for a year. I think it all depends on the player, too. I think they're a little bit lenient with some more so than they are with others. At the end of the day, I don't care that players are, like, don't bet on your team to lose because that's not in the spirit of the thing. But, I mean, the NFL is also kind of ridiculous in how they do their suspensions because, we've seen guys get, 3 or 4 games for assaulting somebody, but laying a bet that doesn't involve your team and you get a year. I mean, or guys that smoke, like Josh Gordon, that smoked marijuana, that got suspended countless times for that. Like, I don't know. To me, that's kind of it's a slippery slope to go down. It's kind of ridiculous. But do I think that you could see somebody get suspended forever? Sure. I would never rule anything out because it's the NFL. I lean more towards the side of I doubt it. It's more so a case of this guy got suspended indefinitely. He's not very good. So I'm not going to waste a roster spot on him because he's just not very good. So I think that's more of what you will see. Like, a guy gets suspended and then he doesn't resurface because he's not good enough. Good players will find a place, just like Calvin Ridley did with Jacksonville after being suspended when he was with the Atlanta Falcons. Like, that, to me, is something that will always happen in terms of that. Talent, generally speaking, finds a way, whether suspended or not.
Beyond the player's angle, the risks of gambling among the general population are very real. Gambling addiction is a major problem for a sizable part of society, and with the legalization of single-game betting, as well as the constant advertisements that have been taking over the industry, the risks of developing a gambling addiction have never been higher.
We also got the chance to talk to Dwayne Mason, an addictions counselor, who gave us strategies for overcoming a gambling problem.
There's different treatments for gambling. So one is sort of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is basically, you sit down and you make a plan about, how you're going to interact with gambling in your life. And then there's sort of a 12-step model, which would be sort of like AA, or in this case it'd be GA, Gambling Anonymous, as a place you can get help. And also there's actually pharmacological ways you can also address, pathological gambling.
The future of football is an interesting one, with more and more information coming out about concussions and their long-term impact. With all the new data upon the decline in quality of life after multiple concussions, futures football is at a crossroads. Enrollment in youth football is declining, with safety concerns being paramount. It may seem inconceivable to some that football may lose its spot on the top of the mountain in America, but basketball is catching up fast. Will fantasy football decline as well? I personally don't think so, as even though enrollment numbers are declining, the fantasy industry is booming. Maybe one day we will see a day where fantasy football is the number one sport and not the National Football League. This has been Joseph Augusti.
And I'm Madison Buckingham.
Signing off for 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Trettenero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
Hello and welcome to your 1230 Sportscast. I'm Joseph Augusti, and thanks for tuning in. Training camp for the Vancouver Canucks is now underway, and President of Hockey Operations, Jim Rutherford, is excited to start the season.
I like where we're at with our hockey operations group. Patrick touched on it. We have a group that is together now and aligned in a sense of how we want to do things, how we want to play. I feel really good about our development department. I feel really good about our group in Abbotsford.
On-ice work for the Vancouver Canucks training camp begins today in Victoria, with preseason just around the corner. The Canucks will kick off preseason September 27th against the Oilers. As training camp got underway, there was one key player missing. Players hit the ice this morning with notable absence Ilya Mikheyev. According to Czech's Rick Dollywall, Mikheyev has been excused from camp due to a personal matter. Mikheyev's agent, Dan Milstein, says Mikheyev should be back in a matter of days. It looks like the sale of the Ottawa Senators will finally go through today. According to John Shannon, the NHL Board of Governors held their confirmation vote electronically over the past few days. The vote was unanimous in favor of Andlauer. Andlauer, the former minority owner of the Montreal Canadiens, signed a binding agreement to purchase the Senators on June 13th. It is expected that Andlauer will be officially introduced as new owner of the Sens on Friday. Sens training camp is underway, with scrimmages being held this morning. Brady Tkachuk set Tim Stützle up for a goal early. The Edmonton Oilers have made changes to their hockey operations department. Michael Parcati has been named Senior Director, Data and Analytics. The Oilers were one of the few teams in the NHL not to have a full-time analytics department. The Oilers training camp commenced today ahead of a crucial season for the team, as they try and maximize Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl's prime. New signing Connor Brown spoke about returning to reuniting with junior hockey teammate McDavid.
He creates a lot of room with his speed, and he draws a lot of guys to him. So it's a lot of about finding soft ice and creating speed and timing. And so a lot of things go into it. And he's a fun guy to play with, even throughout these scrimmages and stuff. It's just fun to be out there with him.
The Vancouver Giants have added another celebrity to their ownership group. The Western Hockey League team announced Thursday that Drew Scott, best known as co-star of the television show Property Brothers, is joining star singer Michael Bublé as part owner of the team. The Giants' ownership also includes majority owner Ron Toigo and part owners Sultan Tiara, Louis Bublé, and Bruce Allen. The Toronto Blue Jays first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has undergone an MRI on his injured right knee. Guerrero was a late scratch last night after he ran gingerly down the first baseline multiple times Tuesday night. The Blue Jays defeated the New York Yankees last night by a score of 6-1 and are back in action in the Bronx at 4 o'clock Pacific time. Kevin Kiermaier was very happy after the crucial win.
Yeah! We ain't done! Come on now!
Jose Barrios takes the mound against Yankees ace Garrett Cole. It's now official. Alek Manoah's season is done. The former ace of the Blue Jays was shut down for the year after having multiple injections to his throwing arm. The big right-hander had an extremely disappointing season, marked by 2 separate demotions to the minors. After his second demotion, Manoah did not report to AAA Buffalo, and reports surfaced he was unhappy with being demoted yet again. Manoah, who was the opening day starter, struggled all season and finished the year with a 3-9 record and a .587 earned run average. Former Canadian NFL lineman Laurent Duvernay-Tardif has retired from professional football. The 32-year-old Duvernay-Tardif played 8 seasons in the NFL for the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Jets. Duvernay-Tardif, who has a medical degree from McGill University, opted out of the 2020 season to volunteer at a Quebec long-term care facility during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. Duvernay-Tardif won the Super Bowl in February 2020 with the Kansas City Chiefs. And that was your 1230 Sportscast. I'm Joseph Augusti for 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.